On the last tape that we got, the Dallas tape, you spoke to a guitar player, and I feel the same way about music as he does. And I wrote down just about every single thing you said to him, and one thing that threw me off a little bit is when you were talking to him about why he was doing music. And you said to him that if his why was for fame and success and for fortune, that pushes really hard against your now.
Good, let us clarify that.
Okay.
When we say to you, ask and it is given, we are not kidding about that. If you stand in a buffet line and you say, I would like some potato salad and I would like a cheeseburger and I would like a pickle, usually the nice people behind will give you anything that you ask for. They will not say to you, I'm sorry, you cannot have the pickle unless you get this. They do not seem to be related to each other. And if you would approach the buffet that the universe is yielding to you in the same way, you could say, universe, play music through me. And the universe would do that. You could say, universe, bring me dollars that support me and thrill me. And the universe would do that. But sometimes we see that when you say, I want fortune to come to me through my music, your vibration about music is pure, but your vibration about fortune is not. And now you've got them all tangled together so that you are in the place of resisting all of it. So what we were getting at with him is, in his pure love of music, it flows with no entanglement. We were visiting with another man after that who asked the question, I'm wanting fabulous wealth and success to flow to me through my music. Now his words to us were, I want to make a very good living through my music. And as we acknowledged him, we could feel the power of the music that is flowing through him. But his entanglement was over the subject of dollars, which was then thwarting the music, and he was not having a good time in any of the process. And so we are making an effort in both of those cases just to help them clean up their vibration. We really want you to hear us when we say, you can ask for this, and you can ask for this, and you can ask for this, and you can ask for this. And the more separate you leave those desires in the beginning, the more you allow the universe to cleanly deliver them to you. Does that make sense to you?
It does. The second part of that was, how do I know if I'm cross-purposed with my desire, which I guess is basically what we were just talking about. So how do you know if one thing you want is screwing up something else that you want?
Well, you can tell by the way you feel. And we want to clarify something here. It really is wonderful when all of you is cross-purposed with all of you. In other words, we are not suggesting that it isn't perfectly all right for you to come to the place where you say, I'm wanting all of this wonderful stuff to come through this particular channel or avenue. But if one of those channels or avenues is not as clean, then you slow your process of receiving down by making them contingent upon one another. And we notice, as we watch so many of you, because you are not quite yet really believing that when you ask, the universe yields, because you're not quite yet ready to receive the fullness of all that you deserve, you keep thwarting your path, and then you say, well, I want well-being to come to me, and I will justify it through this effort or through this action. And so your work becomes that means of justifying the well-being, and that's why so many of you sort of eke it out. You pinch it off. You only allow a small proportion of what is due you because you are working so hard to justify the means through which it comes. And we are working to help you to release those barriers of justifying the well-being that comes and get closer to a place of just letting it come. That's why we're talking about this three-point system. You ask, the universe yields, you let it in or receive. We want you to begin focusing on the receiving mode. We watch so many of you, and we see evidence that you are not in the receiving mode. For example, we'll see someone offer you a compliment, and you have a hard time receiving it. You say, oh, this old thing? Or we watched Jerry offer compliments to lovable cat, Elsie. he'll say to her, "Oh, you are such a beautiful beast." And she says, "I know, I know, I know, I know, I know. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am." She never feels embarrassment. She never says to him, "Well, if I'd known you were going to come and give me all of this attention, I wouldn't have rolled in the dirt just now." She doesn't mind. She accepts herself fully. She knows her perfection. She allows well-being to flow to her, and she never resists a compliment. We'll watch someone go to do something for Esther, carry a bag for her, or open a door for her. And Esther's first impulse is, "No, I got it." There is an attitude of justification within so many of you. You've learned it along your physical trail, but it goes something like, you must earn your way. You must establish open channels for the well-being to flow to you. If you want such and such dollars to flow, then you must torture yourself through these channels in order to earn this recognition of your torture. And if the recognition of your torture is sufficient enough, we will reward you with a plaque that then is your justification for the receiving of what you want. So you say, "I have not earned a plaque in so many things, therefore I cannot receive it." And we want you to begin practicing receiving. And so as we were talking to the man, as we speak to you about allowing the music to flow, you know what it feels like when the music flows. And all that you allow to come to you should feel like the music flowing. The dollars that flow to you and through you should feel like the music that is flowing. The wellness that flows to you and through you should feel like the music. There cannot be this sense of justifying and being in the receiving mode at the same time.
Okay. That leads me to my second part, which I'd like you to help me shift from justifying, and that's exactly what it says on the paper here. I'm afraid that if I appreciate my now job and point out the things I appreciate in them instead of my reasons or justifications for not wanting to be at that job, that I'll get stuck there instead of moving on. Now, I know from everything that you've said and all the listening and the tapes that that's not true, but I'm afraid of that. That's right where I'm stuck. So will you help me get unstuck?
Well, let's talk about this, because many people think this. And we can understand how you would come to that thinking as you've been picking up things along your physical trail. But we want to explain to you the flaw in that thinking. As you look into something, whether it is a relationship, a work environment, a material object like a house or a car, and you recognize that there are many components, and you say, well, when I look into this work environment, there are some things that I am really enjoying, and there are some things that I'm not enjoying. But I'm afraid if I enjoy these 5 things, that the universe will then deliver to me not only the 5 things that I enjoy, but the 5 things that I don't enjoy. And we say, that's not possible. You cannot be a vibrational match to the 5 things you enjoy and the 5 things that you do not enjoy at the same time. These things make me feel good. These things make me feel bad. No matter what I'm focused upon, I'm a vibrational match to them. In other words, the thing that holds some people in a place of employment that they really don't like is giving their attention to the things that they do not like. Because if you were giving your attention only to the things that you do like, one of 2 things would have to happen. Either that work environment would transform to be 100% of what you like, or the universe would yield to you a different work environment. A woman said this to us one day relative to her relationship. She had left her terrible husband behind. Yet she was not any more joyful once she had left him than she was when he was in the middle of her experience. She just was poorer. And so she said to us, what should I do? And we said, well, since he's on your mind so much, since you're tied together with children, and really all relationships are eternal whether there are children or not, we said, if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would make lists of things that we appreciate about this person. And she said, what you just said, oh, no, Abraham, I do not want him to come back to me. And we said, but you are using him as your excuse to not allow the well-being to flow to you.
Okay.
He won't come back to you if you give your attention to the things that you enjoy. And he is not a vibrational match. He is not a full vibrational match to that. The universe will not deliver him to you.
I understand.
So what you're wanting to think in terms of, and it's the reason that we've entitled this gathering what we are calling it, the art of receiving, or the art of allowing, or the art of letting it in, is because when you give your attention to things that make you feel good, then you are holding yourself in vibrational openness to all of the things that you've been telling the universe that you want. When you feel good, only things that are good can flow into your experience. Only things that you consider to be good can flow into your experience. Yes.
I understand.
So now let's walk through it a little bit. You want to talk about the nitty-gritty of it?
Sure.
Let's take this subject of work.
Yes.
Just visit with us. Now, do not work too hard at giving us the words you think we want to hear.
Okay.
Instead, just sort of offer your normal banter or your normal conversation, the conversation that you speak sometimes, but mostly the conversation that goes on in your own mind. Just express to us how you've been feeling and thinking about your work environment, and we'll guide you a little bit.
Overall, it's not a bad place to work. There's a lot of negative people there. There's a lot of complaining going on. There's a lot of concern about the economy, because I do sell sort of a luxury item. I enjoy some things about it. I'd much rather be playing my guitar and doing music and doing the things that I love. The commute's a bit of a pain in the neck, but I get to listen to you while I drive in, so that's all right. I guess a lot of it has to do with a lot of the other people there, and it's sometimes hard for me to hold my vibration in a happier place when I have so many people nagging and complaining about just about anything. I do enjoy talking to people. I enjoy waiting on the customers. I enjoy the beautiful art that I sell. I sell handmade Oriental rugs. So, I'm 50-50 about it. Some things I really like, some things I don't. I guess the biggest thing is I would rather be doing my music, playing my guitar, working on that, rather than selling the rugs. Does that kind of help?
Yes, it does. Now, we think you were true to your word. We think you are about 50-50. In other words, what you offered in honest dialogue is a pretty good match to what you are feeling vibrationally. We want to give you some highlights of what we received, and then we'll walk through this again with you.
Okay.
You said something very significant when you said, I would rather be playing my music. And we want to point out to you that the reason that you want to play your music is because your music isn't 50-50. Your music is 99-1. In other words, you've got your vibration around your music cleaned up because you're not asking it to give you things that it's not giving you. Can you hear us when we say you can feel the same music flowing through you relative to your work as you feel flowing through you relative to your music when your vibration relative to your work is as clean as the vibration relative to your music? It isn't that the music is a subject that is so much more pleasurable. It is that your vibration of receiving is open relative to the music, and it isn't always open relative to the other. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. And then while you were saying that, the thought that popped into my head was what we were talking about earlier, is if I do that at work, I'm going to get stuck there.
Well, if you got stuck in your music, how would that be?
Wonderful.
How could you be stuck anywhere?
I don't know.
Do they have little hammers that they nail your feet to the floor? How does a deliberate creator who is able to make all decisions for self get stuck? In other words, you're afraid that it will become so enticing and so wonderful that you won't be able to leave it?
I guess,
wouldn't that be terrible? Wouldn't it be horrible if you came to enjoy that place so fully? You see, what we think is happening is that you are like so many. You've decided this is a good thing, this is not such a good thing, and this is really not such a good thing. Mm-hmm. And what we're wanting to say to you is, why are you working so hard at prescribing the avenues through which your joy comes? Why not just focus upon the fact that you want joy and let the universe figure out how to yield it to you?
Okay.
When you think in terms of economy and you say, I worry about the economy because I'm selling luxury items, we would like to say to you that the people who buy luxury items do not fluctuate much with the economy. If you are in the market of marketing something, it is a good thing that it is the things that the people who have plenty of money are buying, because the people who have plenty of money usually have plenty of money no matter what's happening around in the economy.
Okay.
And so, does that soften that a little bit?
Yes, it does.
Now, that's logical too, isn't it? In other
Yes,
words,
it is.
you had no trouble whatsoever receiving that, so you lined right up with that. That thought brought you right into the receiving mode.